Okay, our hangout is officially on air and live. I'm Joan Kuhl, the founder of Why Millennials Matter, the co-author and editor of Peter Drucker's Five Most Important Questions, a new edition that we launched last year with the intention of engaging a millennial audience. And I served on the jury for the International Drucker Challenge, which is really why we're here today. And I'm joined by two of my favorite people and winners of last year's international essay competition. I'd like to briefly introduce them, and then we're going to spend 20 minutes really sharing an insider perspective on the Drucker Challenge to motivate you to apply. And then we're going to take your questions for the last 10 minutes. So first, I'm joined by Benjamin Loh in Singapore, so it's evening his time. Benjamin's the founder of Flair Communications. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Joe. Yes, thanks for having me on this hangout. It's always a pleasure to give back to the community. So I'm looking forward to have this conversation with Khuyen as well as yourself.
Great, awesome. And second, joined by Khuyen Bui, who is a third-year student at Tufts University and was the winner of the Student Challenge, and actually headed to France this Sunday to speak at another global conference. Really, the Drucker Challenge helped launch an incredible visibility opportunity for Khuyen's writing and speaking. So, Khuyen, thanks for joining.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Great, wonderful. So, let me start by just briefly saying how I became connected to Peter Drucker and the Peter Drucker Challenge. So I have had the honor of being connected to Frances Hesselbein for quite some time. Frances Hesselbein is the former CEO of the Girl Scouts of the USA, one of the largest nonprofits for young girls. Frances went to the University of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, which is my alma mater. So when I was in school and I was looking for leaders that were mission-driven and values-based, that were changing the world, Frances was everything to me. And so over the years, I got to build a great relationship with her and serve on her board of her nonprofit, the Frances Hesselbein Leadership Institute. But the backstory is that Frances introduced me to Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker worked very closely with Frances, in fact, calling her one of the best leaders in the world that could lead any business, not just the social sector, but the other sectors as well. So she was a huge fan. They became close colleagues over the years, writing a lot of work together. And actually, Frances's institute was originally founded as the Peter Drucker Institute for Nonprofit Management. So even though I have my MBA and I've worked in corporate, I launched my own business, I would never really have had the deep impact of Peter Drucker's writings if it wasn't for Frances. And that's when I became inspired to launch this new edition of the Five Most Important Questions, because I think that Peter Drucker's work is timeless. I think his wisdom is super applicable today to young students and young professionals. And I think we can use it as a bridge for young men and women to talk to senior level executives and really debate management ideas and principles. And that's what I am seeing happening firsthand through the Drucker Challenge. So Richard and Ilse Straub, who are the incredible leaders of the Drucker Forum, which is an annual conference in Peter Drucker's birthplace, Vienna, Austria, where they bring together the most brilliant minds, sponsored by Harvard Business Review and BBC and the Financial Times. So journalists, executives, writers, authors, just big thinkers. And they had the brilliant idea of starting this essay competition to inspire young people under 35 to react to the topics that these thought leaders are debating in a public forum. So this year's topic we're going to talk about in a moment, but last year was my first time serving on the jury, so I had the honor and the challenge of going through all the unbelievable essays, which is why I'm in such awe of Ben and Khuyen, because the writing could be compared to somebody who's been writing for 40 years, and they had a line of people interested to speak to them at the forum. And I think it's really important to talk about, I want each of them to share how they even found the essay competition itself, what inspired them to write, because we're all busy, everyone's busy. I know even those in college and early parts of their career particularly. So So Ben, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about how you came to compete in the Drucker Challenge, and give me one of your biggest takeaways that you think would inspire others.
Okay. So I was actually doing my postgraduate program in training and development, and I wanted to sort of discover and find a break, a sort of a retreat, and I used writing a lot as a way to unwind and to sort of reflect, and it's a very introspective exercise for me. And somehow one day I chanced upon this student competitions website, and there you go, Drucker Forum Challenge. It just popped up, and I was especially intrigued by the theme of it, which was managing oneself. And managing myself, for that matter, was really a huge theme in terms of my life as well, because I had I had quite a bit of history growing up from 7 to 17 years old, being a serial bully victim. So my life was all a lot of drama, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, but more importantly, discovering and finding out what it means to really manage myself. So with that impetus, I finished the entire essay in just one sitting, because I'm the kind of person who likes to procrastinate all the way to the final deadline. So if you're the kind of person, I urge you not to do that. It's highly stressful, but it works for me. But I really let all my thoughts flow out. So in terms of the biggest takeaway, I believe there were so many, but the biggest one for me was really having the level and the depth of intellectual exchange, because that 2 days event, every single minute was packed with insights, ideas, frameworks. So if you're the kind of person who likes to be sort of intellectually intrigued, intellectually challenged, I think that's the event that you should really invest this time and resources to partake in.
I love that. And I have to say, and Ben, we interviewed you for our podcast, Passion Action, that's on iTunes, and you share more about your story. I mean, you have launched an incredible business. You're an international speaker. You're an author. Yet you are so authentic in sharing that you're an introvert. You're not the typical person that you'd see roaming the halls of a global conference. Talking to people that probably intimidate you, and that's what I love about what you can do to inspire others, is that every time people can see the superficial success, they don't know like what it takes to really get the courage to do that. And I think you're one of those courageous people. So, and I had to just show the world my favorite book right now. So this is Ben's book in spirit, and we'll send a link for it as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
With that, Khuyen, why don't you tell us as well how you, what inspired you to compete in the challenge, and your biggest takeaway, because I think that this has been a tremendous opportunity for you.
Yes, so I knew about the competition through you, Joan. It's just, I think it's one of the best serendipitous story I've ever had. I have heard of Peter Drucker when I was a freshman. Was taking a class in my school, experimental college class, because no one teaches Peter Drucker in the real school anymore. So I heard about him from one of my class, and I was reading some of his work, and then I was listening to a few podcasts online, and many people have mentioned his book, The Effective Executive. So I ordered a copy from the library. It turned out to be a tattered, just really, really bad condition of the book, but I love the book. It's so good. And I was reading it. And then one day I found out there was an event by you, Joan, coming to Tufts speaking, and you were speaking about Peter Drucker's, your latest book, The 5 Most Important Questions. And I thought, that's so good. Someone else is also a fan of Peter Drucker. So I brought the book along, and then we connect with each other right there, I think. And then you forwarded me the opportunity. I learned about that, and I decided to take part, partly because I've read the essay Managing Oneself before even joining the competition. So I knew that I wanted to use this chance to really further reflect on the essay, and it's just a great, wonderful essay to just think about and write about. It was an intellectual and also emotional experience for me to write the essay. Unlike Ben, I spent quite a lot of time thinking about it. I've written a lot more than what I had in my essay, where I had to cut down so much. I learned from my own self-management that I'm not a last-minute worker, so I can't do it last minute. I did it in, I think, 3 weeks, and it's still an emotionally stressful thing. So that was the story. I think the biggest takeaway, I want to share a takeaway that I had from the writing the essay, is that it is I care about like writing a good essay, but I really care about being able to interact with Peter Drucker through his work. And I think that that's what I really got from the experience. I learned a lot from him and about him. I actually had time to read even more. I have the Essential Drucker with me, and was really reading through a lot of it, taking a lot of notes beyond the essay, Managing Oneself. It's just a great experience for me to learn.
Yes.
So I'm really thankful for that opportunity to really learn something in depth. And at the conference, it's just amazing to see how many Peter Drucker fans there are. It's just an honor to be with people who all believe that the management world has something important to share with each other and with the world. And like Ben said, just great people.
Yeah.
Great intellectual feast for the 2 days. I have so much notes and so much reflection to write after the conference.
Yes. That I'm so glad you shared that, and I actually want to add to that story this, which is about why you're so special. You know, last year I traveled to 30 different college campuses, both for the launch of the Drucker 5 Most Important Questions book, but through my partnership with Barnes Noble College, you know, visiting college campuses, inspiring students about career success. So I encourage everyone I meet to do that. And when you came to that breakfast, I'll never forget, you know, how excited you were, that tattered copy of The Effective Executive. And I hoped that you'd be one of those people that would follow through. But sometimes I think these essays can intimidate students and young professionals. And so I really deeply appreciate both of you being so honest about, you know, your motivations for doing it. And Khuyen, I've gotten to know your writing so well and your thought process, which amazes me. But I know you really want it to sink in. You don't do things unless it's totally aligned with your values. And I do think that that's why your essay won, because of how authentic you wanted to be to Peter Drucker's work. And I think both of you, Ben and Khuyen, this is why you stood out at the forum itself, is that you guys were really listening. What are people saying? What do you agree with? What do you don't? And you're both not scared to say if you don't agree, and if you think the world is a little different. And I think that that means that this is an important platform, that the Drucker Forum is really supportive of young minds and new thinking, progressive thinking, and framing it from a source that we've all drawn inspiration from. So, and I love that you continue to read it. I think that that's the power of Drucker's work. You can keep reading it over and over again. I'm sure you both agree, but we all got to meet the incredible, the amazing Dr. Joseph Mazzariello, who has a new book, the Daily Drucker, that basically breaks down Drucker in a digestible way every day, that you can read a little bit, reflect a little bit, talk about it. And hearing him open the forum was hugely inspiring to me. And so let's switch and talk about for the next 5 minutes before we open up to questions. And also just a reminder, if anybody does have questions on the Hangout, you can see a Q&A box. You just need to click on that and type anything you're thinking or questions that you have for us. And this will be posted on YouTube afterwards for repeat viewing and sharing. So this year, the challenge is all about the New Entrepreneur Society. So the new entrepreneurs, movers and shakers in economy and in society. I'm excited about this topic because I, on a daily basis, even as an entrepreneur myself, I'm talking about being an entrepreneur on your own, being an entrepreneur inside your company, entrepreneur as a mindset. And if you go to the druckerchallenge.org to help you with your essay, there are a number of questions along with the abstract to help you think a little bit about what you'd want to write about. But the first, kind of to Khuyen's point, what we encourage you to read from Drucker's point of view is that one of his landmark books, Innovation and Entrepreneurship, published in 1985, is still a phenomenal read today. He described the tectonic shift that he had perceived back then in '85 in its early stages to move from an employee society to an entrepreneurial society. So this shift he saw was driven by unstoppable forces such as changing demographics, globalization, and the ever-accelerating advances in information and communication technology. We clearly are inspired by that topic, and we think that this year is going to blow away the number of applications of essays before. So let's talk a little bit about it. Let's start with Ben. What are your thoughts about this year's topic?
I think this topic is going to cut across many different domains because as we talk about entrepreneurship in Singapore, where I live, I work, and I operate in, entrepreneurship is a big thing. The government is encouraging young people to embrace entrepreneurship, and we go to the extent of doing entrepreneurship classes into schools. We teach junior school students how to code as well. So every student is being primed, is being prepared, is having their minds open to become an entrepreneur. And I think that the biggest kind of discourse, anyone who's interested in this year's topic, is really to bring in his or her own definitions of entrepreneurship. Is it just a matter of running a startup, or is it having the kind of spirit where you have the kind of chutzpah, you have the kind of willingness to embrace uncertainty, all these kind of different definitions and notions of entrepreneurship. What does it mean to you? What resonates with you? And I think more importantly, what I realized from writing last year's essay was really to read up on Peter Drucker's essays and past works, and you realize that his wisdom is really timeless. And when that timelessness comes in, and you realize that certain phenomena that are happening in this world can be explained or ascertained in one part or the other using Peter Drucker's forum, the Peter Drucker's insights, you start to realize that there's a lot of synthesis that's going on. There's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of merging and deconstructing of ideas that's going on. So I think anyone who's interested, really read up and be really in tune with what's happening in your scene, whether locally, nationally, or regionally, or even globally.
That's perfect advice, because you don't have to be an entrepreneur to write about it. You can just be somebody that's reflecting. You're reading, thinking about what's happening around you, whatever country that you're from, or state, or part of the working world. So I love that. Khuyen, what are your thoughts about this year's topic?
I am really excited for the topic. I wanted to participate. I guess I cannot. Yeah, it's so fascinating, because it just so happens that my school is also has put a lot of emphasis on entrepreneurship. Recently, we have a huge department, entrepreneurial leadership studies. Huge in my school. It's the biggest minor in student, and I've seen so many entrepreneurs around. One thing that I wanted, it would be nice to think about this year. I really like the two-term movers and shakers of the economy and of society. So there's not just the economy, there's also the societal aspect of it. Usually the word entrepreneur is associated with business and startup and making something up. But Peter Drucker himself has emphasized so much on the societal impact of entrepreneurship. And so I love having the term society in addition to economy in this year's topic. I think it will be something that participants might want to tap on, the societal impact of the entrepreneurs. So, and another thing that I wanted to share is that, like Ben has said, an entrepreneur, I think everyone really wants to get his or her own definition of what an entrepreneur means. There's so many terms associated with it. We have entrepreneur, then intrapreneur, you have one entrepreneur who is someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, and there's much more in that journey of being an entrepreneur. It's really a spirit, and however you want to define what it means. There's so much there. And I think the last point on Peter Drucker is, I really like what Ben said about Peter Drucker being timeless. I also want to add that many of his writing, if not most of it, are also very timely. It speaks to our time right now. The book on predicting what's happening to the 21st century with the coming of the entrepreneurial society. So definitely read up on more on Peter Drucker, reflecting on one's own experience and then reflecting on a broader context. That if I were to read an essay, I would love to see that level of wide consideration or personal, societal, and also reflecting from the work of Drucker.
I think that is excellent advice. And there's a ton of free resources online, and anybody watching this can follow the Peter Drucker Challenge and the Peter Drucker Forum on Twitter, on Facebook. We're going to work to really update the LinkedIn pages as well to provide more dialogue and questions and posting, and you can see the diversity in people that weigh in on these conversations. There is a Peter Drucker school under Claremont in California, so that's another great resource to go to and look at the work continuing to be done there as well, and that's where Joseph Marciano is as well. So a couple important things, and then we'll see if we have any questions. The deadline is July 15th, so we've got a couple months. So if you're somebody that really needs the time to immerse yourself in Drucker, if you're a student, I get it. You're in the midst of you just passed midterms, you're gearing up for finals, you're maybe trying to think about a summer internship and a job. Don't push this aside. Don't lose this opportunity. Even if you don't place, the exercise of reading this material and writing and trying to get your voice wrapped around an important topic like this, I promise you, will better prepare you for your interviews, help you get more clarity about what you want to do. That's why I think that was smart what Khuyen just said about, it's just to stop in this day and age where we are obsessed with our smartphone, we are in extreme communication, we're running and we're going so fast, to just stop and have that time to reflect and to read and think about your own thoughts, how it influences you, what you really take away from it, is a phenomenal exercise, and actually it'll encourage you to be a more creative person versus just consuming things all the time. So July 15th, really important. And any questions you have, you can you put a declaration of interest that you're going to write the essay, but just ask for some questions or from coaching. You can reach out to any of us through the website or through our social platforms. Let me see, do we have any questions? I know we have a couple of viewers. You know what? We have a question that was emailed to us. What is the Drucker Forum? So I guess to be very specific, the Drucker Forum is a 2-day conference. As I mentioned, it's in Vienna, in beautiful Vienna in Austria in Europe, which was Peter Drucker's birthplace. And it's hosted by the Peter Drucker Society of Europe. And the Drucker family, Peter Drucker's daughters, are still heavily involved, which is amazing. We got a chance to meet Cecily as well. And so it's just 2-day conference, and it is jam-packed, but it's the most beautiful conference I've ever been to, and the intelligence is it's overwhelming but not intimidating. I really don't want anyone to be encouraged and discouraged to write. If you've never written before, you could still compete in this essay competition. On our podcast this past week was Gregory Daniels, another runner-up to the essay competition. He was discouraged after his dissertation towards his PhD that he decided not to write. He thought writing was not for him, and he couldn't write for 2 years, was that paralyzed and discouraged until this opportunity came about. And he did it, and then to place and have the opportunity. So I actually should say what you get for winning. I didn't say that. That's the big deal. So the prize for winning is you get a cash prize of 1,000 euros. You get basically to come to this Drucker Forum for free. You don't have to pay a conference fee. Your travel's paid for. Your airline, your hotel accommodations. The food is amazing. I'm addicted to coffee. The cappuccinos are out of this world. The Vienna coffee is amazing. And the opportunity to contribute in media sessions. So again, we've got some phenomenal sponsors: BBC, HBR, Financial Times, even The Economist. And and to blog about your learning. So you get some huge visibility just by attending, and you get a 1-year free subscription to the Harvard Business Review, which is quite an expensive but an extraordinary resource. Ben and Khuyen, anything else you want to share? Do you get any questions that you think are important that we should just answer?
Probably I'd like to address one question. It's building up on what Joan you mentioned about being intimidated, because I did have that exact reservations as well when I was thinking of participating, because when you think of Peter Drucker, you start to ask yourself, I'm only a student, or I'm only a working adult. What do I have to bring onto the table that's worth more in terms of intellectual value? And there's this level of a bit of self-doubt to ask yourself, would my experiences even matter in the whole grand scheme of things? But I think what really tipped the scales for me was when I started to read the past year's winners, and I realized the winning essays weren't all just about theories or abstract frameworks and whatnot. It was really a bit, I mean, of course, there were definitely a high level of intellectual discourse, but it was also very real. It was very vulnerable. There were people sharing their own unique experiences. And I think that was the tipping point for me to make me realize that what Peter Drucker Challenge was really looking out for aren't exactly highfalutin, out to impress, but it's more really to express what you really feel about this topic in the most authentic, in the most non-contrived manner, in a way such that you are sharing a piece of yourself. And I think that's really the driving intention that anyone who's intending to join the challenge should come with and come from, as a space and as a guiding kind of intention.
That is excellent advice. And actually, Khuyen, I'm going to ask if you can answer one of the questions that we just got, which is questions that are actually on the druckerchallenge.org around the essay. The question is, the questions have been provided as markers for the essay, but they tread more on the political economy aspect of entrepreneurship than the management side. Do you agree with that opinion, Khuyen? And what can we do about that? What can we do to make sure that this is a really inclusive essay topic?
I think it's very helpful to define your own term. Everyone who has taken or is doing business degree thinks about management as business management. And last year topic, for example, is self-management. And so, we really learn to define what the word management means. And I think that is a helpful first step to just be more confident about, I'm writing something that is personal and relevant to me, not just, this is theory, management and business. And I think we make it clear that this is not just a theory thing, and this is management theory and complex stuff. These are very personal too. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I do want to add a point about what Ben just said about why he started to join the competition last year. I had a very similar thoughts. I was nervous because what do I have to offer, right? I have not much of experience. And then I realized that, I have my own experience and I've seen what's around me, not a lot, but I've seen my friends around me, and I talk about fear of missing out, which was something that I saw very common around me. And then this is something, so I need to share this story. I actually went to watch the hangout for the Peter Drucker Challenge last year with you, Joan, and Francis. And I got the idea there, and you mentioned the term fear of missing out, and I thought, that's something that I resonate with. I can write about that. So very helpful to take the step to, use the resources. Watch this video, for example.
Yeah. I hope that to that point, too, Khuyen, I hope that what the three of us have talked about here will trigger some type of inspiration. There was a question that we got about, should the essay be more academic or more personal? It's really open to you. That's what Khuyen was just saying. Like, however you choose to react to this topic or think about it, or what strikes you. As a jury, when we're looking at these essays, we have a number of different dimensions we're looking at. How closely aligned, how much do you reference Peter Drucker, your creativity, how you infuse your personal stories, we get to know you. But I mean, one great resource I forgot to mention is go on the druckerchallenge.org. For 2015, you can access Khuyen and Ben's essays and the other winners. You could see we had winners from Ireland, from from different Wisconsin, all over the place. And that just shows you that diversity that we're open to and really want to encourage and inspire. So we're at the 10:30 Eastern Time standard mark, and I want to wrap up with just saying thank you to Ben, to Khuyen, and a final reminder of the druckerchallenge.org deadline for this international essay competition is July 15th, 2016. Go to the website to learn more. Thanks again, Khuyen and Ben. You inspire me. I'm so thrilled and appreciative and grateful that I got to be connected to you guys through this.
Thank you so much, Joan.
Great.
Thank you.
So, thank you.